Okay, so welcome everyone to another episode of the member series of Verona, an international community of studies dedicated to international security. My name is Pedro Rodriguez from the Human Security team, and today we're going to discuss the Kurdish situation in the Middle East as far as the main scenarios in today's war. So here with me today is Ofra Bengio, a senior research fellow in the Moshe Dayan Center for the Middle Eastern and African Studies at Tel Aviv University and head of the Kurdish Studies program at the Moshe Dayan Center. Also a lecturer at Shalom College, Jerusalem. So her field of specialization are contemporary Middle Eastern history, modern and contemporary politics of Iraq, Turkey, and the Kurds. So thank you for being here with us today, Ofra. It's really an honor to have you here. So I don't know if you want to give some first insights of the conflict.
Yeah, so maybe I should put some basic points so that we can understand the situation. We are talking about some 35 million people. The Kurds themselves, they say they are 50 million people, and they are divided in 4 countries: Turkey, Iran, Iraq, and Syria. Nevertheless, there is, in spite of the fact that they are divided in 4 countries, there is what we can say butterfly effect between all these parties. So whatever happens one place, it immediately affects the other place. And this is very important to remember. Another point is that throughout modern history, the Muslim countries were the main enemies of the Kurds. Even though the Kurds are Muslim people, nevertheless, all their enemies throughout this period were Muslims, and they put them just in a very bad situation. Also, regarding the balance of power between the Kurds and the 4 countries, we can say that among the Kurds, the major power is among the PKK, which was formed in Turkey in 1978, but still it has influence in all the other parts of Kurdistan. On the other hand, regarding the states, Turkey has the greatest influence in all these countries. And for example, I can give an example. In Iraq, it has 75 bases, military bases, in spite of the fact that this is not part of Iraq. In Syria, it has launched wars since 2016. And in Turkey, I'm not saying what's happening. Another point which I want to mention is that the states describe the Kurds, especially Turkey, as an existential threat for the country. But we should look at it from the point of view of the minorities or minoritized group. In that case, we can say that the Kurds were under existential threat by the states.
Those are really great points to start this conversation. So that leads me to the first question of the interview. In your opinion, how have the colonial era borders and the concept of territoriality shaped the Kurdish identity and aspiration for self-determination across these countries that you mentioned, like Turkey, Syria, Iraq, and Iran?
The colonial era borders had catastrophic impact on the Kurds. First of all, they were divided into 4 different entities, which they cannot always cooperate with each other, or mostly cannot cooperate with each other. The second point is that they have different 4 languages. They developed 4 languages in each country, the language of their own. And moreover, they have 3 alphabets, 3 different alphabets. In Turkey, they have the Latin alphabet. In Turkey and Syria. In Iraq, they have the Arabic alphabet, and Iran as well. And we have also the Cyrillic alphabet, which was in the in the Soviet Union. Why is it so important? Because it means that the Kurds cannot really communicate with each other. A Kurd from Turkey cannot read what a Kurd in Iraq and in Syria or in Iran speak or write, and vice versa. So I think this cultural problem has become a very problematic for all Kurds wherever they are. And in addition, they are not really allowed to use them, but this we can speak later. These entities, the other thing is that these entities almost, because they are divided, sometimes they struggle against each other because the countries use them in order to fight against the other group in the other country. So this colonial borders has, on the one hand, divided all the Kurds, but on the other hand, also increase the enmity between them because of different, because the states use them against each other, as we shall see. But what we can say in general is that where the country, where the nation state has been strong, the Kurds could not survive for too long or to have their own entity developed. On the other hand, where the state is weak, we can see that the Kurds manage very well. For example, the Kurdistan region in Iraq has managed to develop its own autonomy, and it has become so strong because the central government has always been very weak. The same we can say also about Syria, at least in the latest, since the beginning of this century, when the government has been weakened more and more, so they have strengthened themselves and made themselves stronger than they used to be before this.
Okay, so that leads me to the second question. So what role have international actors, such as the USA, Russia, and the European Union played in influencing territorial claims and Kurdish autonomy efforts in the context of regional conflicts?
Maybe we should go first to history, because without the roots, we cannot understand what's happening right now. In history, we know that according to Sevres Accord, the Kurds should have had a state of their own. But then 3 years later, the states at the time, the forces decided just to forget about it, and the Kurds were erased from the map of the forces. So since then, we can say that all the powers were playing zigzagging their role regarding Kurdistan. Why is it so? Because the states like Russia, the United States, and Europe have in their mind the nation state and not the cause of the Kurds. So whenever it was easier to use them as a card to play with, they did use them. For example, we know that during the fight against Daesh, the Kurds, both in Iraq and in Syria, they were very helpful for the powers. In Syria alone, 11,000 Kurds have paid with their life in order to fight against Daesh. In Iraq, less so, but again, they have played an important role. Again, if we go even earlier, we can say that during the Gulf War of 1191, Turkey did not allow the Kurds to have their own, to play a role. So somehow the Kurds were important player, and they managed to do autonomy. So on the one hand, for example, the United States helped the Kurds of Iraq to have an autonomy because the major enemy was Saddam Hussein. But once Saddam Hussein has disappeared, then things have begun to change. But still, for the United States, it was important to keep the autonomy for the Kurdistan. But then when there was the referendum in Iraq, in Kurdistan in 2017, then the United States did not stand to support the Kurds. As for Russia, on the one hand, Russia says that it is supportive of PKK because the PKK is a leftist and Öcalan has influence from the communist parties, etc. But again, when it comes to support them, to really support them, they did not do too much to help them on this. So as I said, this is a kind of zigzagging policies of all these parties from the beginning of the 20th century until just now.
And you made a really great point there, Ofra. You were mentioning about regional powers and international powers' influence in the autonomism of the Kurdish. So, in terms of as an inside group, so to what extent do you think the ideological and political divisions within Kurdish factions, such as the PKK, the KDP, and the YPG, impact territorial cohesion and a broader Kurdish national movement?
Well, this is the main point, is the divisions between these groups. We can say that there are two main forces in the Kurdish camp as a whole. On the one hand, we have, as I said before, the PKK, which has influence or has branches in all 4 countries. And on the other hand, we have the Kurdistan Democratic Party headed by Barzani. But Barzani he wants to present himself as the leader of the Kurds. And Öcalan, the head of the PKK, also wants to present himself as the leader of the Kurds. So there is a kind of enmity between these two groups. Also, in terms of ideological things, we have two different ideology between these two groups. On the one hand, in Kurdistan of Iraq, it is more, let's say, oriented to the West, more open to liberal ideas. And even I would say, on the other hand, the PKK is more leftist, pro-communist, but it has been changing as well. But anyway, the division between these two groups has influenced throughout the history on all parts of the Kurds. For example, in Kurdistan of Iraq, we know that there are bases, the PKK bases in Kandil, in Kurdistan of Iraq. So how did it affect the situation? It affects in the sense that Turkey regards the Kandil and the PKK as their main enemy. And first of all, they established, as I said, 75 bases, military bases inside the Kurdistan of region. But in addition, they have been bombarding the region all the time. On the face of it against the PKK, but who is the main loser are the population. The same also with Iran. Whenever there are problems with the PKK or in the Kurds of Iran, they attack also the Kurds of Iraq. Regarding YPG in Syria, again here YPG in Syria, it says it has no connection with PKK, but actually it is connected with PKK. And now it is trying just to remove itself from the list of the PKK because it's a terrorist group. But on the other hand, there are also a lot of tension between Kurdistan of Iraq and the Kurds in Syria, Rojava. Because, for example, at times they do not allow the Kurds from Syria to move to Iraq and vice versa. And because, as I said, the PKK is considered an enemy for the KDP. Because, as I said, they just took the area in Kurdistan of Iraq instead of staying in Turkey itself and fighting from Turkey. So these problems are really very causing a lot of problems, but maybe now we are seeing different things and maybe we can discuss it if we have more time about the changes that has appeared lately.
Yes, of course, Ofra. So in today's scenario, one of the main things to rethink history, are human rights and civil rights, and also a lot of theories about feminism. So, given the intersection of gender and territorial politics, how have Kurdish women contributed to and been affected by the struggle for Kurdish autonomy, particularly in regions experiencing conflict and displacement?
Again, as a historian, I should go back to history and see what is the role of women. We know that the role of women in Kurdish society was completely different, or different from the other Muslim societies, in the sense that throughout history, at least we have proofs from the 16th century, there were a lot of women leaders in different areas. For example, we know, all of us know about Kurdish leader in the military, in a politician, Adela Khanum. Among the Jews, we have a rabbi, great rabbi in the 16th, 17th century. So these women had held a very important role because their fathers or their husbands or their sons allowed them to do it. These were the elites of the Kurdish society. But what we have heard in the latest year is the change that has developed. Even in Öcalan himself has stated that women should be the leader of society. And what we have seen is the change in Rojava itself, but it started in Turkey, but in Syria as well, where women take part in all the, let's say, the equal share in Turkey, in the leading roles in Turkey. But what is more important is in Syria, where the women have equal share in the army or military groups, in the administration, in other areas as well. And this is a unique experience, of course, in the Middle East, but maybe in the world at large. Another very important, interesting experience is that there is a village, women village in Syria, where only women can enter and use, and they have developed a very interesting a place to meet and see, and where men are not allowed to enter. So this is, again, another unique experience which maybe one should imitate.
Great, Ofra. So I would really love to spend more time with you, but since we are like short within a podcast frame, I would ask you one last question about this topic. It's about the expectations you as an academic have in the near future, or in a scenario for the things that maybe that are happening in Syria and these places that we are talking, that could allow or not, in your opinion, of an autonomous Kurdistan?
The way it developed, at least, I mean, we have one area where there is an autonomy, and I think it will be very difficult to change it in Iraq, because this has become a fait accompli. Regarding Syria, this is very problematic because under Assad, for example, they managed to find to form a kind of autonomy, which both of them somehow managed to live with. But now the Kurds in Syria have actually two enemies. One in the north, Turkey, which I think would not allow by any way to have the Kurds in Syria autonomy. And on the other hand, we have also in the south, I mean in the center, in Damascus, where I don't think that Ashara would like to have such an autonomy. And what we have already been witnessing is that he has, organized a meeting where he did not bring the Kurds nor other minorities. So they are as I said, they are threatened. Again, maybe to lose even their cultural merits, which they have had so far.
Thank you so much, Ofra. It was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for giving us the insight of this issue of today's world. So it was lovely to have you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ofra.